Thank you, Atira.
Thanks.
So we'll begin chanting this first prayer 3 times, 7-line prayer.
Organ yogi num chansam, Pemage sardombola, Yatsen chogi ngorupne, Pemajone jesurak, Ordu kandro mampokor, Ketki jesu dak druki, Jinjilo cheer sheksu so, Guru Pema Siddhi Om. Organ yogi num chansam, Pemage sardompola, Yatsen chogi nodrubne, Pemajone jesurak. Ordu kandro mampokor, Ketki jesu dak druki, Jinjilo cheer sheksu so, Guru Pema Siddhi Om. Organ yogi num jansam, Pemage sardompola, Yatsen chogi ngodrupne, Pemajone jesurak. Ordu kandro mampokor, Ketki jesu dak druki, Jinjilo cheer sheksu so, Guru Pema Siddhi Om.
Om
Namo Pensa Guru Pema Siddhi Om. That's not what I meant to click. Okay. Hi, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. So, as Jane mentioned, this is the fifth class in the series of 6 classes. So next class will be our last class. In the first class of this series, we talked about why the practice of Tonglen is so important and so helpful for this moment. And in the practice of Tonglen, also known as the practice of sending and receiving or exchanging self with others, we visualize taking on the suffering of all sentient beings and sending them our happiness. So then, in order to understand the nature of that suffering and why sentient beings suffer, we spent the next couple of classes talking about the law of karma and how it functions and how it manifests as the 6 realms of cyclic existence in which all sentient beings are reborn again and again and again into great suffering. When we imagine taking on the sufferings of all sentient beings and sending them our happiness, it diminishes our self-cherishing, it opens our heart, and it develops bodhicitta, which is what we discussed in the last class. Bodhicitta is the awakened mind of wisdom and compassion. It's the aspiration to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others. Bodhicitta has 2 aspects, relative and absolute. So absolute bodhicitta is the realization of emptiness that is attained by bodhisattvas on one of the supreme levels or bhumis. And until we're there, until we realize emptiness, we should focus on relative bodhicitta, which is the altruistic mind. It's the profound wish to benefit others and be free of all selfish aims. So the only way that absolute bodhicitta can ever take birth in our being is if we practice relative bodhicitta. So if we have to first develop the love and compassion of relative bodhicitta, otherwise we'll never realize absolute bodhicitta. And if we practice relative bodhicitta correctly, absolute bodhicitta is naturally mixed in with it. It's naturally present there. Because when we're practicing relative bodhicitta, we are remaining aware of the dreamlike nature of reality, which is that understanding of emptiness. We are practicing that understanding of emptiness. And so we have a little bit of that mixed in. And so eventually we will fully realize absolute bodhicitta. This relative bodhicitta has two stages. The bodhicitta of aspiration, which means constantly reminding oneself about the wish to benefit beings and for all beings to be enlightened. And constantly thinking about that and never forgetting that wish is aspiring bodhicitta. The bodhicitta of application is integrating that thought into everything we do. Not just with our meditation practices or our pujas, but with absolutely anything we do. You wake up with that thought, you go to sleep with that thought, you eat and drink with that thought. With that thought, you buy groceries, you paint your nails, you walk your dog, everything you do. This thought transforms any Dharma practice into the bodhicitta of application. Wait, but I said painting your nails. That's not a Dharma practice, is it? But it can be. It could be. Buying groceries can be a Dharma practice. Painting your nails can be a Dharma practice. Dharma doesn't just mean the Buddha's teachings. Sometimes we draw this distinction and we think that doing Dharma practice just means going to soak and meditating and attending the pujas, and that's it. We think that's the only thing that Dharma practice is. But Pacho Rinpoche says, in a bigger way, Dharma can mean everything. Eating, drinking, sleeping, walking, taking showers, feeding your pets, watering your garden, sending an email, or receiving phone calls. All that can be practice. And if we see that all is Dharma, then every function and every thought becomes the path. Many of us think too narrowly, and we see our Dharma practice, our path, as only 1 hour per day. For the true practitioner, every moment of life is the path. That means the whole day, all 24 hours. This is because they do every activity with the intention of bodhicitta. Normally, we tend to make a separation between what is our dharmic and our normal lives. We actually are limiting ourselves this way. However, if we remember the intention well, then everything you do becomes different. So no matter what activity you're doing, your Dharma practice should always observe what are called the 3 supreme points. So the first one is we always start with an attitude of bodhicitta, which means that we wish to undertake this activity to attain enlightenment for the sake of all beings. Even if that activity is checking the mail, we can still have that intention, We don't have to understand how checking the mail could benefit all sentient beings. We just have to make the wish that it does. So we always start with that wish. And this bodhicitta is our superpower. It ensures we're headed in the right direction, and it clears obstacles out of our way so that we can accomplish our aims. I think it's kind of like Dr. Strange's superpower. Like, it opens up doors in places you don't think there could be a door. And, it like blasts through obstacles, you can just like pew, 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 like, shoot out your bodhicitta and it blasts through obstacles. So you don't even know what's possible until you clear the road with the bodhicitta. And then while you're engaged in whatever practice you're doing, be free of concepts and distractions. So that means we're we don't cling to pride. We don't cling to ideas of whatever activity we're doing as having some intrinsic reality. The subject, object, action, and result of the practice are illusory. So everything that we experience is just a projection of our own minds. So when we remember this dreamlike nature of reality, then we practice non-attachment. We're not going to cling to a mirage, right? So we understand this is just like a dream. And at the end, we always dedicate the merit. And dedicating the merit turns even a small positive action into a cause for enlightenment. So even if we do something so small, you don't think about it. I mean, you take a little spider out of your house or something like that, just some small virtuous action that you're only helping a bug back to its home or whatever. Dedicate the merit. Anything you do, and give someone directions. Why not? Dedicate the merit. May all beings find their way. But dedicating the merit protects it from being destroyed by anger and other negative emotions. And it's kind of like putting your money in a savings account instead of leaving it scattered on the sidewalk. So if you make this merit, you don't want to just leave it out. You want to put it somewhere safe where it's going to be in that enlightenment account for all, forever. So another way to think of it is that dedication is like putting a drop of water in the ocean. So the ocean is so vast that once a drop of water is dissolved into it, it's never going to dry up. So in order to use every moment of our life as the path, we need to know how to make use of the adverse circumstances that we're bound to encounter in our daily lives. Unfavorable circumstances are the best opportunity that we have to put the teachings into practice. If things are going well, what are you gonna do? It's not that much to do. But adverse circumstances, they really challenge us. That's the whole thing with the God realms. The God realms have everything they want. It's just all pleasure. They have opulence and just wealth and just every need is met. What reason do they have to practice? But then when you run into, you have a bad day or, you've got a 2-hour wait at the DMV, you're stuck in traffic, someone says something mean to you, like anything, anything bad that happens. Oh, wow. Now you've got all of these negative emotions coming up. That's a lot of material to work with. That's what that is. It's like stirring up the stuff so that you can look at it and you can work with it. This is the clay that you can use to make the pot. You know what I mean? This is the stuff that we're working with, is our negative emotions. And so if we never see our negative emotions because everything's going great, it would be very difficult to work with them. So in this way, adverse circumstances can be a real blessing. And adverse circumstances are considered under 4 headings because we love lists in Buddhism, love lists. So there are 4 things you don't want to happen: loss, suffering, disgrace, and disparagement. 2 things that are difficult to bear: being wronged in return for kindness and humiliation. The 3rd is deprivation and prosperity. And the 4th is hatred and desire. So we're just going to go through the first 4 of these today, and then we'll save the rest for the next class. These first 4, the 4 things that you don't want to happen, you might recognize as being half of the list of the 8 worldly concerns. So the 8 worldly concerns are, gain and loss, pain and pleasure, disgrace and fame, and praise and disparagement. That's what it is. So, so we're just going to talk about the negative side today. So the first one is how to use loss on the path. And as it says in the 37 verses on the practice of a bodhisattva, if someone driven by great desire seizes all my wealth or induces others to do so, To dedicate to him my body, possessions, and past, present, and future merit is the practice of a bodhisattva. So having wealth and prosperity is usually seen as something that's desirable, but our attachment to it is an obstacle on our spiritual path. So when someone takes your money or possessions, they are freeing you from the shackles of attachment that these things have created in your mind, thereby preventing you from falling to the lower realms. And if we understood this, we would feel nothing but gratitude to someone who robs us. We're very far from this understanding. I know I am, but if we understood this, we would feel nothing but gratitude towards our robbers. What we are attached to binds us. And if we own nothing, we're free. When we lose our money or possessions, we should remember that it can only be the karmic result of having deprived others of their possessions in the past. So there's no reason to feel angry with anyone but yourself. A great bodhisattva, someone who has truly given rise to bodhicitta, never has angry thoughts towards anyone who harms them. Instead, they would think only for that person's welfare. For instance, I once read a story of a lama who interrupted a burglary in his home. And I can't remember where I read the story now, so I can't remember which lama it was. But this lama came home and someone was trying to, was in his home stealing his stuff. And the lama felt that he must stop the thief, not to protect his own possessions, but because just out of concern for the terrible karma that this person would get from stealing. His only thought was for the welfare of the burglar. The lama said, "Here, all of this is yours." And he gave him everything, so there's nothing to steal. So he couldn't steal because the lama gave him everything. So that's not usually how we think about protecting, how to stop a thief. In each of the Buddha's past lives, before he attained enlightenment, in all of his past lives as a bodhisattva, he met an incarnation of the same person who was always trying to cause problems for him. And every time that he encountered this person, the Buddha always tried his best to help him. And in his lifetime as Shakyamuni, when he became the fully enlightened Buddha, this person was reborn as his cousin, Devadatta. And Devadatta tried to kill the Buddha on several occasions. He sent mercenaries after him, but they converted to Buddhism. He tried to drop a big rock on him, like Wile E. Coyote style, but the rock split in half. And he tried to let loose a drunk elephant, hoping that it would harm the Buddha. But then when the elephant came into the Buddha's presence, he just became completely tame and peaceful. So the Buddha repeatedly said that he did not see Devadatta as an enemy, but rather as a kind teacher who had taught him how to act as a bodhisattva. In another previous life, the Buddha was born as a snake that was eventually stoned to death by a group of children. And his mental power, his spiritual power, was so great that he could have killed them by simply looking at them. But instead, he kept his mind filled with compassion. And as he died, he prayed to be able to benefit them in the future through this connection from them killing him. Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche says, "Whatever harm others may inflict on you, always pray that all beings suffering may come to you and not to them. Make the wish that you will always be able to serve them and that their minds will be ever full of joy. In the same way that in the Guru Yoga practice you meditate on the teacher visualized above the crown of your head, so too meditate here on all beings as though you are carrying them on your head and pray to be able to dispel their suffering and bring them happiness. As we have already seen, there is no greater offering to the Buddhas than that." When someone is harming you and you feel compassion for them, it purifies your karmic obscurations, it frees you from anger, and it develops your positive qualities. And it is such an effective practice that the harm that this person has done to you will carry you along the Bodhisattva's path. As it is said, I take refuge in whoever harms me, as he is the source of all happiness. So when someone harms you, you can visualize taking all of their suffering into your heart and then with compassion, sending them your happiness. In the morning, our first thought should be the commitment to do whatever we can to benefit others and to bring all beings to ultimate happiness. And in the evening, we should dedicate any merit that we've accumulated throughout the day for the benefit of all beings. And then if anyone has tried to harm you that day, you can make the wish for them to be free from all animosity, all vindictive feelings, and that all of their positive aspirations will be fulfilled. And this is not easy to do, but if we keep trying, we'll eventually be able to do this. And it really does. It's very easy. This is not easy to do, but I can attest that anytime I have done this, it has been very helpful. It definitely goes against how we're taught to behave in the world, though. It's like the exact opposite, you know? I feel like every time I talk to a school group about Buddhism, the first question I get is like, but what about like self-defense? Shouldn't you defend yourself? And like, it's just so interesting because in Buddhism, we don't believe in the self. So it's just a little bit different, the logic of how one would act in this, who one would protect in that situation. You would protect the other person. You might want to defend yourself to protect this other person from creating these harmful negative actions, but not because of protecting a truly existing self from this external enemy. And then the second one is how to use suffering on the path. It says in the 37 verses, if in return for not the slightest wrong of mine, someone were to cut off even my very head, through the power of compassion to take all his negative actions upon myself is the practice of a bodhisattva. So it's important to remember that any suffering that we experience is the result of our own past actions. And if someone harms us, we must have done something in the past we must have harmed others in some way in a previous life. So instead of getting angry, we should be full of compassion for them and try to help them and benefit them. And if you see someone doing something negative, think of all of the suffering that they're creating for themselves and make the prayer that instead of them being reborn in the hell realms, may the results of their negative actions come to you instead. And then dedicate to them the results of your own positive actions. Now, practicing in this way also helps to eradicate our belief in a truly existing self. Our real enemies are not tyrants and troublemakers and rude customers and robbers and cheating competitors and cheating spouses and the person who sues you in court. Like, none of those people are your real enemy. Your real enemy is your belief in a self. Doga Khyentse Rinpoche says, the idea of an enduring self has kept you wandering helplessly in the lower realms of samsara for countless past lifetimes. It is the very thing that now prevents you from liberating yourself and others from conditioned existence. If you could simply let go of that one thought of I, you would find it easy to be free and to free others too. If you overcome the belief in a truly existing self today, you will be enlightened today. If you overcome it tomorrow, you'll be enlightened tomorrow. But if you never overcome it, you will never gain enlightenment. So we have spent so many lifetimes believing in the reality of this I, me, myself, and I. But if we look for it, it can't be found. It's just a thought, a feeling. It's a label that you've given to a transient combination of concepts and attachments to your body, speech, and mind. So who you are today is different than who you were when you were 5 years old, right? You don't even have all the same skin that you had when you were 5 years old. Our skin replaces itself like every 7 years, right? You don't even have the same body anymore. Your eye definitely doesn't live in, can't live in your limbs because you can lose all of your limbs and still be you. You can get a heart transplant and still be you. So it's not in your heart. I think the only things we don't know how to replace are your brain and your liver, I think. So it's got to be one of those, maybe. Hopefully not the liver. Let's see. In the brain, what part of the brain? Like if you can have, there was that guy that had that I don't remember his name. Maybe you do. The guy got the railroad tie in his head, and then that gave. Was it Winnicki? It's how we know where the language centers of the brain are. There's like two parts of your brain where like your language comes from, right? Like there's like the ability to understand or to speak. So we know about those because someone had a brain injury and a railroad tie went through his head, and he lost one form of speech and not the other. But you can have all sorts of you can have brain surgery, you can have all sorts of things happen in your brain though, but you can't locate where the I is. Which neuron would it be? Which little synapse in your brain is the I? If you keep pulling it apart, where is it? You can't find it. If there was some synapse in your brain that was you, okay, then when you die, it was just that synapse, that's it. What carries on? It can't be that synapse. That synapse is here. Even our brain prunes those synapses as we go. I mean, it's like we lose them. You drink green tea, it flushes it out of your brain. Like there's nothing in us that is like that we can really point to. That's like this lasts forever. This is a truly existing self. Your habits change, your hobbies change, the people you love change, the people you hate change, everything changes. So this I has so much power over us because we're unaware of its true nature. We don't look closely at it, and so it gives this mirage of being a truly existing solid self. And we don't interrogate it very much. But once we realize that it has no inherent existence, your belief in it will quickly disappear. And without that belief in a self, anger, desire, fear, and these other negative emotions can't arise. So whatever practice you do, use it to dissolve this idea of I and the self-serving motivations that come with it. So the next one is how to use disgrace on the path. It says, even if someone says all sorts of derogatory things about me and proclaims them throughout the universe, in return, out of loving kindness, to extol that person's qualities is the practice of a bodhisattva. That's not what you want to do. That's not what our emotions want to do when that happens. But if someone defames or disgraces you, that is, again, the result of your own past actions from criticizing or dishonoring others, especially the bodhisattvas. If someone besmirches your good name, instead of feeling angry with them, you should feel grateful to them for giving you this opportunity to purify your past actions. There was once a monk at Rotring Monastery, who was falsely blamed for the theft of a lost plate. And he went to the abbot and he said, I'm not at fault. What should I do here? And hello. So the abbot advised him to, you can come in. You're welcome to come in. Hi, welcome. So this monk's accused of stealing a plate. And he goes to the abbot and he says, I didn't do this. What should I do? And the abbot advised him to accept the plate. The abbot advised him to accept the blame, offer tea to all of the monks, and eventually his innocence would be proved. So the monk followed his instructions, and that night he had many good dreams indicating that some kind of purification was taking place in his being. And soon after, they found the plate and his name was cleared. And then when the abbot heard the news, he affirmed, see, this is the right way to behave. But whether you have a good reputation or a bad one, your reputation has no objective reality. It's not worth caring about. I mean, what are we really worrying about here? If there's no self, then what do we care about the reputation that self has? And the great teachers of the past never worried about their reputations. They would always respond to slander or disparagement with kindness and patience. For instance, once there was a couple whose children always died in infancy. And when another child was born to them, they consulted an oracle who told them that the only way the child would survive is if they claimed that he was the son of a spiritual master. So, so the wife took her baby boy up to this cave where the master Longri Tongpa was meditating. And she set the baby down in front of him and said, here's your son, and left. And Longri Tongpa said nothing about it other than he asked a devoted woman he knew if she would take care of the baby and feed the baby. But of course, this was a scandal. Gossip started, he was a monk. And so gossip and rumors started spreading about him having fathered a child. But he said nothing. He let people talk. And a few years later, the parents came back with bountiful offerings, and they respectfully said to him, please forgive us. We weren't at fault in the least, but we let these rumors spread about you. And, but this child has only survived due to your kindness. Oh. And then serenely and without a word, Longri Tongpa just gave the boy back to his parents. Hello, welcome. You're welcome to have a seat or look around. The Dogo Khyentse Rinpoche says, some people spend all their energy and even risk their lives to achieve fame. Fame and notoriety are both no more than an empty echo. Your reputation is an alluring mirage that can easily lead you astray. Discard it without a second thought, like the snot you blow from your nose. So the last one is how to use disparagement on the path. It says, even if in the midst of a large gathering, someone exposes my hidden faults with insulting language, to bow to him respectfully, regarding him as a spiritual friend, is the practice of a bodhisattva. So as a follower of the Buddha, you should never retaliate when you are harmed. If someone abuses you, don't abuse him in return. If someone gets angry with you, don't get angry with him in return. If someone exposes your hidden faults, don't go and expose his faults in return. And if someone strikes you, don't strike him back. If someone criticizes you or insults you, no matter how offensive their words are or how low the blow is, we should not give into anger and return like for like. Instead, the Buddha advises us to practice patience, take it positively, and use it as a chance to let go of your own pride. You can practice generosity and compassion by giving the victory to them and being happy to lose. All of the paths of Buddhism talk about giving victory to others. That is one way we can practice generosity. Besides, what is there to be won or lost? And if there's no I, who wins and who loses? From the viewpoint of the absolute truth, there is no difference between winning and losing. When the Chinese communists came to Tibet, many Buddhist teachers were treated as criminals, and they were abused and jailed, and they abused and beaten. And instead of feeling hatred, they prayed that the negative actions of all beings would be purified through these malicious attacks against them. So following their example, when we are insulted or humiliated, we can pray that through the connection we have with this person that's humiliating us, we may be able to bring them to liberation. So any connection that we have with someone, whether they are a friend or a foe, whether it's the animals that went into the food that we are eating, the bugs that died when the vegetables were harvested, anything, whether it's someone who, harms you or anything, any connection that we have with others, we can pray that through that connection, we can lead them to Buddhahood. When we give into our ego and our anger like we want to, when we feel that it's justifiable to respond with an eye for an eye and get back at them, we say terrible things. It just inflames the situation and it escalates anger on all sides. And that is how people start to fight and kill with each other. We think that, you might think that your harsh words in the situation are inconsequential, but murders and wars all begin with a single angry thought. As Shantideva says, no evil is there similar to anger, no austerity to be compared to patience. So we should never give in to anger, no matter how seductive it can be. When we have the habit of anger, it is very difficult to not give in to our habits. The more we give into that habit of anger, it's like it greases the slide kind of, so it's like every time we give into it, it becomes easier and easier to give into anger. And then the same thing, that when we don't give into anger, it becomes easier and easier to resist that impulse. So instead of giving into anger, we should practice patience and have gratitude for the person who humiliates us, because they're giving us a precious opportunity to strengthen our understanding and practice of bodhicitta. The great Jigme Lingpa said, "Ill treatment by opponents is a catalyst for your meditation. Insulting reproaches you don't deserve spur your practice onward. Those who do you harm are teachers, challenging your attachment and aversion. How could you ever repay their kindness?" So if we lack the courage to face our own hidden faults, how are we ever going to abandon them? If a person or situation helps you to see those faults, even if it's uncomfortable and humiliating, they helped you to see the fault, and so they're doing you a great service. Because now you can do something about it. If you didn't know you had that in you, you know, you wouldn't weed there in the garden if you didn't know there were weeds there, you know? So they're showing you, here's the weeds. As Lord Atisha says, the best spiritual friend is one who attacks your hidden faults. The best instructions are the ones that hit your hidden faults. The best incentives are enemies, obstacles, and the sufferings of illness. And there was a Kadampa master named Shawopa, and when his disciples came to see him, he would warn them, I only show people their hidden defects. If you can avoid getting annoyed, stay. But if not, go away. A lot of times people expect, when you talk to a Buddhist Lama, you expect them to just be so nice and just say nice words to you. And you expect to just leave feeling so good. And it doesn't always work that way, because a lot of times, if you have the merit, if you're lucky, basically, they will point out your hidden faults. And because they're trying to help you, they're trying to help you weed that garden. So they're going to show you. So these are these four adverse experiences, these four things that we don't want to happen. And when we respond to them in these ways, it eliminates the distinction between what we perceive as good and bad, what we want to happen and what we don't want to happen. From the point of view of absolute truth, there's no difference at all between gain and loss, pleasure and pain, fame and disgrace, or praise and disparagement. They're all equal. They are all empty by nature. As Shantideva says, thus, with things devoid of true existence, what is there to gain and what to lose? Who is there to pay me court and honors, and who is there to scorn and to revile me? Pain and pleasure, whence do these arise? And what is there to give me joy and sorrow? All right, so now we're to the meditation portion of the class. So during this series, each week we're trying a different Tonglen visualization. If you'd like, you can take a seat. You're welcome to stay. There's chairs here or there, or you can sit on a cushion. So for this series, each week we're kind of doing a deep dive on Tonglen right now. Tonglen is the practice of sending and receiving or exchanging oneself with others. And this is a meditation practice that diminishes our self-concern, it opens our heart, and it helps us to develop bodhicitta, which is the wish to attain enlightenment for the benefit of others, for the benefit of all beings. So in this Tonglen practice, we visualize taking on the sufferings of others and sending them our happiness. And we're using, for these classes, we're using these extraordinary pith instructions from Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche that go into detail about how to make this practice more effective. So we're kind of doing the director's cut version of the Tonglen practice. This is kind of a long version of the practice. You can also do this practice very quickly, anytime throughout your day. And I'll explain about that at the end. And for those of you who have been here for past classes, so the beginning of this visualization, the majority of this will be the same week to week. And then at the end, we do a different variation on the sending and receiving practice. So Dilgo Khyentse Rinpoche advises us that, we should sometimes try these other variations of Tonglen. There's kind of a standard variation, which we're going to start with, of taking in all being suffering as like a dark mass or smoke, and then sending them our happiness as light or nectar. But there are all these other different visualizations that we can do to meditate on compassion in this way. And so Dogo Kensei Rinpoche advises us to, sometimes try these different visualizations. So that's what we're exploring. So you can get into your meditation posture. If you need to adjust anything about how you're sitting so that you're comfortable, you can do that. Generally for meditation, what's most important about how we sit is that we have a straight spine and a relaxed body. So you can meditate sitting or standing, but you just want straight spine and a relaxed body. First, it's important to start by arousing a deeply felt warmth, sensitivity, and compassion for all beings. To do so, begin by thinking about someone who's been very kind and loving to you. In most cases, my phone's with a timer. In most cases, this person could be your own mother. So you could remember and reflect on her kindness, how she gave you life, how she suffered the discomforts of pregnancy and childbirth, how she looked after you as you grew up, how she kept you clothed and fed, kept you safe, how she was ready to make any sacrifice for you and to put your welfare before her own. But it doesn't have to be your mother. It could be anyone who has been kind and loving for you, kind and loving to you. So just take a minute and reflect on the kindness of this person. And when you feel strong love and compassion, imagine step by step that this person is undergoing the sufferings of the six realms. In the hell realm, she is repeatedly and brutally killed and revived. She is tossed into a boiling cauldron of molten bronze. She suffers in agony before your very eyes. Then imagine that she has been reborn as a starving spirit, just skin and bones, and has not even so much as caught sight of food for 12 years. She stretches her hand out to you, imploring you, "My child, do you have anything you can give me to eat?" Imagine her reborn as an animal, a terrified doe being chased by hunters and their dogs. In panic, she leaps off a high cliff to escape them, but falls with unbearable pain, shattering all her bones. Still alive, but unable to move, she is finished off by the hunter's knives. Continue to imagine her undergoing, in quick succession, situation after situation of suffering. As you contemplate this, an intense feeling of compassion will irresistibly well up in your mind. At that moment, turn that intense compassion to all beings, realizing that each one of them must surely have been your mother many times and deserves the same love and compassion as your mother of this present life. It is important to include all those whom you now consider enemies or troublemakers. Reflect deeply about everything that all these beings are going through as they wander endlessly in samsara's vicious cycle of suffering. Think about old, infirm people unable to care for themselves, about all those who are sick and in pain, people who are desperate and impoverished, lacking even the most basic necessities, about people suffering famine and starvation, the pangs of hunger and thirst, those who are physically blind, and about those who are spiritually destitute, starved of the nourishment of Dharma, and blind to any authentic vision of truth. Think about all those who suffer as slaves to their own minds, constantly maddened by desire and aggression, and about those who harm one another without respite. Visualize all these sentient beings as a crowd in front of you, and let all the different forms that their suffering takes arise vividly in your mind. With an intense feeling of compassion, begin the practice of sending and receiving. Start by focusing on your most hated enemy or someone who has caused much trouble and difficulty for you. Take a moment to bring that person to mind. Consider that as your breath goes out, all your happiness, all your vitality, merit, good fortune, health, and enjoyment is carried out to him on your breath in the form of cool, soothing, luminous white nectar. Make the prayer, may this truly go to my enemy and be entirely given to him. Visualize that he absorbs this white nectar, which provides him with everything that he needs. If his life was to be short, imagine that now it's prolonged. If he needs money, imagine that now he's wealthy. If he's sick, now he's cured. If he's unhappy, imagine him so full of joy that he feels like singing and dancing. As you breathe in, consider that you take into yourself, in the form of a dark mass, all the sickness, obscurations, and mental poisons your enemy may have had, and that he is thereby completely relieved of all his afflictions. Think that his sufferings come to you as easily as mountain mist wafted away by the wind. As you take his suffering into you, you feel great joy and bliss, mingled with the experience of emptiness. And now do the same for the infinity of beings you are visualizing before you. Send them all of your happiness and take on their suffering. Repeat this again and again. So that is the standard Tonglen practice, and now we're going to do the variation. Now, visualize that you are calling all of the spirits who harm beings in various ways. You give them your flesh to eat, your blood to drink, your bones to gnaw at, and your skin to wear. With compassion, consider that bodhicitta takes birth in their minds as they happily revel in all of these offerings. Okay. So, so that's one variation. So that's one variation on the Tonglen practice. So you can use this Tonglen practice at any time throughout your daily life, whether you're sick or well, or sitting on a meditation cushion, or sitting in a doctor's office, or on the bus, or wherever. You can do this practice anytime. So the beginning of the practice, where we were visualizing our mother or whoever who was kind to us suffering, that was practicing giving rise to bodhicitta and generating compassion. So we don't always have to do such a long drawn out visualization for that. Sometimes we should really practice juicing ourselves up with bodhicitta, with like a visualization like that. And then sometimes we don't have time for that. We just kind of remember bodhicitta. We just kind of pull it up in our heart and go, right, bodhicitta. And then we can just jump to doing the sending and receiving practice of doing the visualization with the breath. Or doing one of these other variations that we've tried, like this one, feeding the harmful spirits, or past classes, we did one with being like a wish fulfilling jewel, or, going into different realms and helping beings in all the different realms. So there's different ways that you can do the practice, but you always start with bodhicitta intention, and then you do this visualization, one of these visualization practices of taking on the suffering of others and sending them happiness. And you always want to make sure to specifically bring into your visualization people you don't like, troublemakers, your enemies. Make sure that you include them, because you'll have your natural tendency is to leave them out. So you want to make sure you deliberately include them when you're thinking of all beings. And then at the end, we always dedicate the merit of our practice to all beings. So you can even do this just if you have a minute. You can just see someone, you see a homeless person on the sidewalk, and you feel compassion, and you generate bodhicitta, and you visualize taking on their suffering and sending them your happiness. And then maybe you expand it out to all homeless people, and then maybe to all of the people who create that problem in this world, or to just add in people that maybe just add in your enemies and people you don't like, and wish for them to be free of their deprivation, whatever way they don't have enough, or whatever causes they're making for that. You can just bring more and more people in and grow it. If you have time, grow and grow and grow that visualization until all beings are there. But you can kind of do it in whatever amount of time you have. If you have 1 minute, do it for 1 minute. If you've got an hour, do it for an hour. You can do a quick visualization or a long drawn out visualization. But when you constantly practice this exchange of self and others, then this will bring us to the very core of compassion and bodhicitta. So so that's the class. And then we just have enough time for this Chenrezig practice here, which is also a practice of compassion. So we have these handouts, and I'm going to put this, the link to this in the chat. A second, for the people who are online. Okay, so for those who are online, the link's in the chat. So Chenrezig here, he's the Buddha of compassion, and he has so many hands and so many eyes so that he can see the suffering of all beings and help them. So we are praying to Chenrezig, Buddha of compassion here. And so during this part where it says visualization and praise, we are visualizing Chenrezig as we in front of us, this picture. All right, go for it. Go.
So we'll begin, this first prayer, we'll just chant one time. Organ yogi num sam bemma ge sardon bola yatsen jogi ngodrume bemma jone jesu drag Kordu kandro mambagor Kedki Jesu Dagruki Jinjilop Chir Shek Suso Guru Pema Siddhi Om Ahum Betsa Guru Pema Siddhi Om. We'll do the visualization in English. Your 1,000 arms are the 1,000 universal monarchs. Your 1,000 eyes, the 1,000 Buddhas of this fortunate age. You who teach each and every one of us according to our needs. Lord Avalokiteshvara, to you I pay homage. And our mantra is Om Mani Padme Hum. So we can keep this visualization in our mind as well. Om Mani Padme And our dedications on the last page. By this virtue, may I swiftly accomplish the state of Chenrezig, and may all sentient beings without exception be placed in that very state. By this effort, may all sentient beings be free of suffering. May their minds be filled with the nectar of virtue. In this way, may all causes resulting in suffering be extinguished, and only the light of compassion shine throughout all realms. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and for folks online. Next week, Atira will be concluding this series of teachings. So it'll be the sixth one.
Mhm.
And following that, I believe Khenpo Karze will be back in town. Now in retreat in New York, and he'll be joining us on Sunday morning. So every Sunday morning, we have a class in meditation. So everyone is welcome to join us for that. And when we do have these classes, we put out baskets so that you can make an offering in exchange for the teachings that you receive. You have to do that. Okay, so thank you, everybody, and come again and enjoy the property and all the things that are here.
We also have meditation classes on Saturdays at 11 that are a little bit different. They're kind of more just like a guided meditation the whole time with less talking. And then right now we have the drum circle across the street. So we have a drum circle across the street at the Guru Rinpoche statue, and we'll be drumming for rain, or for rain to go where it needs to go and to stop going in the places that have enough of it, and just to balance the elements and bring rain where it's needed. So so everyone's welcome. No musical experience is needed. It's a lot of fun.
And there's extra instruments.
Oh yeah, there's extra instruments too.